Hello, Internet. This is Team B&B back with another Churning the Butter podcast for this month. And I know it's been a while, but ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about in a short period of time. And I'm here, as always, with our friendly neighborhood Joe, a.k.a. the Ice Cream Man, who has recently taken over our Twitch channel just recently with some more modern games, some more non-fighting games. He played Destiny on there. That was awesome.
There'll be more of that coming.
I hope so. Also, today, we're going to be talking as much as we can about fighting games. Might be a little bit of Magic the Gathering in there, but we're going to try to focus on fighting games. And the first topic I'd like to talk about fighting games is, man, we're at a time where there's a lot of fighting games in the fighting game, community, the FGC, and the question I pose to you, the viewer, the listener, as well as to my friend the Ice Cream Man is, are you going to grind all of them? And by grind, I mean, are you going to spend, hours learning the game, learning the mechanics, really getting into the meat? Do you have the passion to want to be good? I come to this quandary because several things have happened. Not only is Dragon Ball Z Fighters, coming up closer and closer, but Injustice 2 has just announced, their next wave of DLC characters. Which the first character was the Atom, who they showed a trailer for, and it was awesome. And he's got a lot of shape-changing, abilities, as he should. He turns big, he turns small, and he's all over the place. And he's really cool, fun to look at. And he turned out a lot better than I thought he would. Then you have Enchantress, who was the main villain from Suicide Squad. And that's, NetherRealm Studios' take on that character. She's kind of straightforward, magic user, blasty.
She reminded me a lot of Starfire.
Yeah, a lot of Starfire, a little bit different, kind of a mix between, say, like a Dr. Fate and a Starfire, and there's a lot of, hand blasty characters in Injustice 2. I just hope she's not another zoner.
Oh, of course she's going to be another zoner. Come on now.
And then the last one is kind of what I'm speculating as an amalgamation character, which is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what I think is going to happen is you're going to play all four of them at once.
All right, so I want to really get into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I have two theories about this character or characters.
Okay.
The first thing you see when they show up is you see Raphael, and then Mikey says, "Hey, I take the magical girl," and he says, "We fight as a team." Now they don't state it anywhere, so we have no way of knowing for sure. But I believe we're going to get something similar to kind of a stance where I would hope you would get a stance character where your trait would be you switching between the turtles. Now, the other way this could go is you could have someone with assists or strikers where you play maybe Leonardo, and then as special moves, the other turtles jump out and do an action or something like that. I would prefer the stance because it would be more interesting. I always thought that it would be interesting if you had a character like MKX's Triborg, if you could switch between the modes. And if you could do something like that with the Ninja Turtles, that would be awesome. Also considering that from the DLC pack, now they might be holding back and not showing everyone in it, but they only showed 3 technical characters in it, and that's kind of short for, a fighter pack. So if they are going to only have 3 characters in this pack, I would want a more involved character rather than just a character with assists, because Harley has assists, Ivy basically has assists and stuff like that. So I would want a little bit more from it, especially considering how cool and how hyped a lot of people are for the Ninja Turtles. I understand some people aren't, but I'm interested, and I know it's going to bring a lot of eyeballs to this game.
Yeah, I agree, but I actually think it's going to be the latter. I think they're just going to be assists. If you think about Marvel vs. Capcom 2, they had Captain Commando. All the other characters from his franchise were little attacks that came out and did damage. I think it's actually going to be like that.
Or Strider.
Or things of that nature. In Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Strider summons the little bird, and the bird holding a bomb, and the little,
tiger.
The tiger mechanical deal. I think what's going to happen with this is it's going to be you're playing like Leo, and then you're gonna have all the rest of the characters come out as like those strikers, like he said. And I think what's gonna happen is the customizability or the customization of the turtles would be all the different turtles themselves. You get like you change the color of the turtle's headband and the letter, and that's what you get for the items. And then which turtle you actually play is probably gonna be like a skin or like one of the extra items similar to like Nightwing.
I can see the colors being changing the main turtle, so it will look like Leonardo or something like that. Also, I'm interested in seeing if for the customization items, will they be kind of like, will they have one that's kind of a throwback to like the Turtles in Time and like the samurai gear? Like, I would be really surprised if they don't make that easy layup.
Yeah, I think they're going to do something like that. But what I was really getting to is I think they're going to do something similar to like, Robin, where like you get an item, one of his moves that you get is actually Nightwing's staff, and he gets to use like Nightwing's staff, and then one of those is going to be each one of the turtles. And,
that'd be interesting.
So like, for instance, if you want to play as Mikey, right, with some of the Mikey moves, you would pick a different move, and it would be Mikey, right, and you'd insert it in that slot, similar to how you change Robin with the Staff of Grayson is what it's called. And they did release
these new legendary items that take a little bit more effort or a little bit hardcore to get into. They could release that for these turtles as well.
Yeah,
and have those slot into that.
I think that's what it's going to be. Just like how you said, I think maybe even Master Splinter might be one of them.
Ooh, mm-hmm.
Maybe that might be a thing.
Shredder,
something like that. You might get Shredder gear, like the claws, and you might look like, or like the Ninja Turtles movie 3, the samurai versions, or like things of that nature, right?
What happens if if they're going to do the striker thing, if they wanted a really wild, like, alternate costume, like they have, Raiden has a really wild alternate costume where he's Black Lightning, where you choose Shredder, and it turns all the other turtles into, like, foot ninjas?
Yeah, that's another way it could work. Actually, if they were going to pick a character for that universe, I actually would have rather have seen Shredder, like, as just a character. Like, I'm happy about the Ninja Turtles, but if it was up to me, I would have just picked Shredder. Because seeing, like, Shredder versus, like, Sub-Zero to me would just be cooler. Or seeing, like, Shredder versus Batman, because they're both kind of, like, on some kung fu-y type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, Shredder's kind of, like, badassery and, like, voice.
I would actually like it if they do go the striker idea like you think they are. Then them coming out with the ninjas, like the little foot ninjas, to do the strikers would actually be really cool.
It could, and that's a totally idea they could do, and that's one thing. But as cool as all this is, the question has to be asked: is this gonna make you stop playing whatever video game you're playing now? Turn on Injustice 2 like you did when it first came out, and grind out Ninja Turtle and play that for hours and hours and hours online, or however it takes for you to get super good at it and try to be competitive at Injustice 2 because of Ninja Turtles. I'm gonna for myself say no.
Well, I know some people will. I mean, some people they see a character and that's enough reason for them to play a character or even play an entire game. I think that's the whole point of this, is to draw eyeballs and drive forward. So it's not going to be for everyone. It's not going to make everyone do it. But, if they don't put out this content and they don't continue, then the game falters. So.
Oh, yeah, no, that's totally a thing, right? Like, they have an audience, of hardcore people who are going to play whatever they dish out no matter what. And to be honest, personally, I wasn't too surprised by the Ninja Turtles, only being the fact that Ed Boon is, NetherRealms, that's an American company. So they're going to get all their American references in there. Like, you got Jason, you got the Predator, you got Leatherface and Freddy Krueger. Those were all in Mortal Kombat as guest characters. So it doesn't surprise me that something like the Ninja Turtles, as left field as it was. One, because I saw Hellboy.
So you were saying once you've seen Hellboy, all bets were off?
Yeah, anybody was kind of available at this point. Also, the other rumors that I've been seeing is Spawn.
Watch out for Scud.
Yeah, Scud. You know what I'm saying? All that kind of stuff. We might even get, We might even the Green Dragon or some, super weird character.
You know something would be really interesting?
What's that?
I know a couple of really maybe independent comic book fans might see some indie love there, maybe some Vertigo. I mean, that's where Hellboy is. They could open it up. DC does have a long list of stuff like that. Maybe like Dark Tower characters, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Green Dragon is an Image character.
Yeah.
He's a very classic Image character. I mean, like the Max or somebody could randomly show up. So, I mean, that's going way off the beat.
They could do like Witchblade, but I think she may be a little bit way out there.
Yeah.
Like suit wise, maybe they'd have to do some alterations to make her a little bit more PG. That look more like a Mortal Kombat character than a Injustice character. I can see that.
Hell, if you really want to go like super far out there, you can go all the way up to like the super independent comic books and throw some comedy in there with something like, Fat Ninja or something even way out there. Like, that's a real thing, people. Look up Fat Ninja. Like, I kid you not. That's a semi-popular comic book that I actually enjoy for the comedy-wise. But, I mean, that's how far, like, if it's an American pop culture reference, it's within Ed Boon's, powers at be to grab it, right? The fact we haven't seen Spawn yet is kind of odd, but you would think he'd be perfect for a Mortal Kombat scenario.
This would not be the first fighting game Spawn showed up in.
No, he was
in Soul Calibur 2.
As weird as that was, yeah. I mean, that was pretty weird for him. He had some kooky axe. I mean, it was all over the place. He had fireballs and all kinds of weird.
Flight mode.
Yeah, it was all over the place. He really didn't, to me personally, he didn't really fit in that game for what they did with him. Because, like I said, he was all over the place, and I mean, he was good. But like when they did other guest characters in Soul Calibur, like say Darth Vader, for instance, he kind of fit a little better because his playstyle was more attuned to what I would assume Soul Calibur is like. But my friend Joe, that's being his game of choice, he would know better. I
honestly, although Spawn was really weird, I also thought Link was really weird.
Yeah.
But Link sold so many units of Soul Calibur 2, it's not even funny. But
oh, yeah.
You could have paid me to believe Link was going to be in there for Nintendo.
So what do you think about the rumor, speaking of Soul Calibur, that originally, instead of Link, it was originally going to be Cloud from Final Fantasy?
I did not hear about that rumor before.
You never, the story is... from what the internet will tell you is he was like when they were considering different characters, he was almost like considered a thing, and then they got Nintendo to agree to Link. But if Nintendo would have agreed to Link, they were gonna shoot for Cloud from Final Fantasy VII.
I think Cloud here's the thing. So they should have done both, and the reason I'd say that is because that Link was a Nintendo thing. If you didn't have a GameCube, you weren't playing Link. But you know who PlayStation had? Heihachi. And Heihachi has his fans. But his fans aren't as big. He's not even the most popular Tekken character, for one. And two, Cloud was a very good representation for PlayStation for years. Because for a long time, the only place you could play FF7 was on a PlayStation console, and when a lot of people thought Final Fantasy VII, they thought PlayStation. But they thought Final Fantasy characters for a decent period of time, it was PlayStation. So I think they should have done both.
Yeah, but, Hachi's a Namco character, and they got to do him, and I mean, he ended up...
I guess they didn't want to pay that many royalties. They paid Ed McFarlane and Nintendo, I guess.
They didn't have to. They didn't have to, they didn't have to pay Square Enix, any mind. They considered it, but it fell through, so, you got Heihachi, and that's how it went. I mean, it was only a rumor anyways from the, the interwebs, but that was the thing. And so, speaking of Dragon Ball, Z fighters and just fighting games in general, and how many fighting games there are these days, what do you think about some of these newer characters in Dragon Ball Z fighters being some of the lesser known story characters or lesser featured, like a Nappa or a Tien or a, Wolfang Fists or all those guys, I forget, the name escapes me, Yamcha. But like all those different characters, and like Captain Ginyu is being in the game. What do you think about those characters, getting a little more shine in that game?
Okay, I'm excited for Tien. I'm not excited about Yamcha. I'm sorry. He's stuck as a really good baseball player, but perpetual fighting loser in the universe in my head, and he won't move from there. So like I just won't be excited by Yamcha. I don't care what they do. I like Nappa. I like big characters. I've always just liked Nappa. I always liked, he had the big laser beam coming out of his mouth. I always thought that was cool. So him being a kind of big, heavy striker is cool. I'm actually really interested in Ginyu. I really like the character. I like him as a striker, or having strikers, as in the fact that he has these assists and he calls out the Ginyu Force to do all these different moves. So I'm really happy with that. He turned out exactly what I did, like I thought he would. The switch, the body switch, is really interesting, and that's, to me, is going to be super hype. But yeah, the one thing I'm not so sure about in this Dragon Ball Z is, besides Ginyu, these characters are starting to look more and more the same, and that's not good. Now hopefully when I get my hands on it, I can feel the differences between these characters a lot more, but it's looking on the outside to be a lot of the same stuff.
Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna put a little my personal 2 cents on Mr. Ginyu. Somebody's missing from the Ginyu Force. If you look at all the trailers, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but Zarbon was hanging around those guys. The character Zarbon, he was like this blue kind of, beauty-esque Japanese Vega, Street Fighter kind of style guy, like very beautiful, manly man type of deal. And he's kind of missing from like the Frieza and the Ginyu Force and all of that. So I think he's going to be a character of his own in the game. I think they're just going to dump him in the game. I don't think we're going to get Brawly unless we get DLC down the line. I think the next couple of characters is going to be only so many. Also, another character in that game is the game's original character that they debuted super early, Android 21, which I like only for one reason, because it's a girl, because Dragon Ball Z could always use more female characters.
Yep.
And as much as I would like all those Dragon Ball Super characters, like Goku Blue and all that, and Goku Black and all that kind of stuff, and all these different, I'd love to see Master Roshi in the game.
Would you like to see Beerus?
Maybe.
I think Beerus would be cool.
Yeah, things like that, right? Like, who knows what crazy attacks they could have him do. I think they went with a lot of characters that they felt they could make archetypes for, to have, like, the classic fighting game archetypes, like a heavier character, or a light, speedy character, like a Krillin. Like, my personal team in that game, just because I like the characters, is going to be Android 18, Krillin is going to be the last character, and then Boo's going to be in the front. Like, because my favorite Dragon Ball Z character is Boo. But that's, that's my personal stuff. But I think, there's an epidemic in fighting games is coming up. And it's kind of, started with Capcom, but it bled over to all these fighting games, all the popular major titles, and it's called DLC. And back in the day, I'll use this analogy. Back in the day, DLC used to be like going to McDonald's and getting the Big Mac combo. And when you bought the Big Mac combo from McDonald's, they would give you, the 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and sesame seed bun. And anything you wanted else after that was on you. The fries and the drink were extra. The more sauce, no onions, anything else, bacon, anything else you wanted on it, that's all extra. That's on you. Well, nowadays, a lot of these fighting games with their, instant DLC, I'll give you an example, an easy example is Marvel 3 when they first announced, or Marvel Infinite, when they announced all this stuff, Sigma, DLC, right away, day one DLC, right? Dragon Ball Z Fighters has that with the Goku and Vegeta Blue characters, which are literally just blue-haired clones of, Vegeta and Goku. They may have different moves, but they're not wildly different characters. They're still Goku and Vegeta in some way or another. And they kind of talked about they might not even do that and have bunch of different characters. Now I'm expecting to see adult Gohan as a character and evil Boo, Super Boo as a character. Now
they could sell you 3 different Boos.
Yeah, they could sell you 3 different Boos and 2 different Friezas and
they can sell you 5 different Friezas
and 8 different Gokus. You know what I mean? Like that's just how they could do it. And I think a lot of people would still go for it. But nowadays, these DLC games and these fighters with all these stages and musics and things, feels like they're just selling you, a Big Mac with just 2 all beef patties and these buns, and that's it. And the pickles, lettuce, cheese, onions, and hell, even the sesame seeds, and especially the special sauce. Oh God, you're not getting that on the first go run around. Like, this DLC is everywhere. I mean, day one DLC for everything. Day one patches, all that stuff. So what do you think about all that? Because I think it's an epidemic. I think it's bad for fighting games.
So, I think this is not an epidemic for fighting games. I think this is an epidemic for gaming, period.
Okay.
I said fighting games are just indicative of what's going on in general in gaming, which is these things that you would normally have as extra modes, or you would have as game plus, or things you could unlock in the game, and now being sold and pendied off to us. Now, we did used to, in the old school fighting games, have the different iterations where when they came out with new characters, you bought an entirely new game. So it's still kind of better than that, but not by much, and no one wants to see it before the game comes out. Like, I think that's what's really kind of taking people off, is they're selling us DLC packs before we've even played the game and decide what we want or if we even like the game or not. But that's indicative for the gaming industry in a whole, as they're just trying to get more and more money from you before you even decide or make an actual decision about the game. They're trying to get as much from you up front, pre-ordered, DLC in the pack and a special bundle. So this is, I guess, I would say for fighting games, unfortunately, this is better than it was before, because you can choose not to buy all the characters if you want. Now, granted, if you buy the characters individually, a lot of the times it's more expensive than just buying them all at once. So you can decide to, well, I'm buying this game, and then if I don't like the base game, well, I don't have to, buy a brand new version, or, wait for the new version to go on sale. So it's slightly better for fighting games, but fighting games have had this problem for a while, and this is just a reskinning of the same problem.
But like we said before, if you're going to be competitive in a fighting game, you got to buy the DLC.
Oh,
you got to get all those characters.
No, if you're going to be competitive, you don't have a choice.
No. If you're going to be competitive in any aspect of these games, and now more than ever, thanks to, the goodwill of a lot of good people, video games is taking off more now than ever, so you can, make a nice chunk of change playing video games and get a little internet notoriety and do a Twitch and all those things. Mm-hmm. So you can do all that. So that's out there for you. So it behooves you, to do that. Like, you have incentive to being really good at these different types of video games and stuff like that. As to maybe in years past, it wasn't as much. But if you're competitive, you're kind of stuck. Also, like, prime example, Public Enemy #1, good old Capcom, they said you never would need another disc in order for Street Fighter V. But the Arcade Edition...
Technically, they're right.
They are right. But Arcade Edition is another disc you can go out and buy if you want. And it has a bunch of stuff on it that if you didn't get it the first time it came around, you can get now.
I personally think that this was the best thing they could have done.
Yeah, no, reskinning Street Fighter V and making it look all cool, new, and fresh and updated is just good. But...
because this game needed a reboot.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't say so much a reboot as it more like it just needed, a kind of a... exhibit to show up and kind of just pimp my ride a little bit.
Yeah,
right? It needed a lot of visual and not so much technical aspects, but it needed a lot of visual, things to happen to it. And I think we're getting that.
I think visual, but I think it needed to not a reboot in the fact that it needed to take everything apart, but it needed a nice new gloss of paint. It needed to reestablish itself, because with the hardcore fans, we're fine. The people who are going to play Street Fighter are playing Street Fighter.
Me.
The people who aren't going to play Street Fighter aren't going to play Street Fighter.
Them.
But I said for the general populace, of which they're still trying to sell this game to.
Oh yeah.
Because they still need to make more sales numbers on this game. This was what they needed to do.
Right. But with me bringing up this DLC and bringing up Arcade Edition for Street Fighter V, which is going to come out the beginning of next year. The problem is, in Japan, and we might not even get this in the Western market. They got their box. Oh yeah, that deluxe box that you get with all those other fighting games that's coming out now, the $200 swag box.
Oh yeah.
They got a and you can look up online. It's right there for you. They got the valuable edition, quote unquote. So they got the Street Fighter arcade edition super swag, 999 yen. Get the swag box with all these little plushies and keychains and stickers and the game with an alternate art and all this, like the alternate art on the box, that you can't get anywhere else, and all this little swag and trivia and BS. And like they also have these little move lists, like in paper form, that you can see, and they show you the new little move that every character is gonna get, and all this mechanical stuff. Also, I'm gonna leave all my mechanical judgments for Arcade Edition until I actually get my hands on it.
Yeah, because we don't actually really know.
Because everything else is speculative at this point. Like, yes, we've seen pictures of what looks like extra V skills and stuff like that, but you really want to report on that from a first-hand reviewing experience. Because I want to be able to absorb.
At this point, I just want them to confirm whether or not it exists, because that's things we've seen, and these could be things that are in there. They could be things that were tested and were left on the chopping room floor. We have no confirmation of any of these things existing.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of hokey pokey on the mechanics of Arcade Edition, quote unquote. But the visuals and what it's supposed to look like, and there's a new KO, a new little KO picture flash that comes up and is gold everywhere and everything looks good, and you're gonna get new UI and new UX, all those little knobs and stuff are gonna look different and new and fresh and all that. And that all is great. Like you can always make something look better. Like to me, this game is kind of like a car. You can always put a better engine in it and, make it look better. You can always do that. But a thing that, I mentioned in this is because that's a lot of, they're still trying to resell the same old stuff.
Yep.
And Capcom, and the thing about Capcom is it's easy to pick on them because they're obvious with it. They're not very, they're not very discreet about their shilling. But these other companies are kind of doing the same thing. Like, there's a $200 special edition, deluxe, hyper, mega, ultra, the 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and sesame seed bun for Dragon Ball Z fighters. There was one for Injustice. I mean, this is how they're selling games to you now.
Yep.
And you got to look at yourself and say, do I really need these things? Like, do I need the little plush in an art book? And it was fun when we got the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite box with the little diorama, and I was a little bit disappointed in the Infinity Stones because, people were kind of making some good points after that, where it was nice, but it wasn't what they thought they was going to get. And then I got to look at what people thought they was going to get, which was these little plastic egg-looking deals. It looked even better than it does. And, like, that's a thing, too. And they got money from that, too. I mean, but then when does it become, people try to use the justification, I'm supporting the games I love and the companies I like and the games that I like by spending all this money. Yeah, but you could have spent $60 on the game itself and did the same thing. Like, what does it take, Like, they're adding fluff. And I wish instead of adding all this fluff, they would add a little more, like, love into these games. Because it's starting to offend my sensibilities as a consumer when I'm constantly getting barraged with all this fluff and not enough crunch. You know what I mean? And by fluff, I mean, things like keychains and plush dolls and, little dioramas and all this, fancy, statuaries and a $200 box and pictures and all this art. Those things
so they have really nice art for, like, the art book. I wish a certain game had the better art in the game.
Yeah, like like certain games, and you could name names. Go ahead.
Marvel
vs. Capcom Infinite.
Marvel could have spent all that money they spent building these beautiful diorama over here that I'm looking at right now. Nice sculpture. It's great. It was great. I wish Tony Stark's face didn't look like he was perpetually eating, a sour lemon in the actual game.
Or like he really does look like the alcoholic he is in the comic books. Or that Spencer, if you look at the character Spencer in Marvel, that man, you know what? I'll give it to him. I guess he is Bionic Commando after all. He looks like he's been through a war. I mean, The guy looks like shit, and I hate to curse on this thing, but he looks like absolute shit. And his alternate costume is, oh my god.
Don't
even get me started on that.
You know what's funny though?
Have you seen his alternate costume?
Yes.
Thing looked like the crane game at the pizza shuttle from Toy Story. Like he's gonna go get the little LGMs, double prizes. Like he looks.
I think Tasty Steve said if you were playing his alternate costume as your main costume, we're not friends anymore.
I'd play it just to piss off other people. Like I would do it in tournament. Like I would just go to these tournaments to play the alternate costume Spencer just to make the other guy upset so he loses. You know what I'm saying? Because Spencer isn't like a half bad character in Marvel 3 mechanically.
I actually really like
Marvel
Spencer
Infinite, or Marvel Infinite, I should say. I keep calling it Marvel 3. I'm sorry, people, but.
Well, he hasn't changed very much from Marvel 3.
Actually, he has. He's got like buttons he never had before.
He has changes. I'm not saying there hasn't been any changes.
Like, have you seen that heavy kick? When did Spencer start going to Pilates, man? He getting up there with that foot, man.
But all I'm saying is he didn't get as big of a change as like Dante. Like Dante got a huge change from his previous.
Also,
game.
Speaking of alternate costumes and the way it looks. The DMC Dante or whatever.
Why does it look so much better than the actual Dante?
Well, because there's a paywall. So you can only disappoint people so many times. I mean, it's the old saying, fool me once, shame on you. At least Capcom is good at one thing. If you do sell out and get all the crap looks better than the stuff. So when you pay for it, you can't be too upset. Like, damn it. I had to pay to make these characters look halfway decent on top of the fact I bought the game? That ain't enough? No, apparently not. And that's the epidemic. That's what makes it bad. It's the
beautification pack?
Yeah. That's the sad part. You have to go through, you have to jump through all these flaming hoops to finally get something that looks halfway acceptable. Where's the craft anymore? Talk about Japanese, they I thought they were in it for the art and the craft of the whole thing, and they like to refine these, resources they have. They may not have everything, but they make the best whatever it is, right? Well, when did that stop? When did that stop, man? Because, especially with these fighting games, and I'm not just...
And the sad part is that, you were talking about, Ed Boon, is kind of crazy, he does all this American stuff, but Justice is still a gorgeous game.
Oh, yeah, no, them Ninja Turtles, they look great. I was upset that in the trailer they didn't have the letter on their little circle that was on their belt, like the letter for each one. But I digress. Those are little, that's nitpicks. That's me nitpicking.
That's a specific generation thing where they had it before, then they lost it. They had it, they lost it. So that's depending on which era you grew up with the Turtles, whether or not that's something that you expect. But I understand, it's they didn't have that little thing, but they do look great.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't have nostrils like a lot of people some people may have been worried about them looking more like the Michael Bay. I'm not sure that they're comic book characters. Let's not forget, Ninja Turtles are comic book characters, so they fit. But yeah, they look good. The Atom looks as cool or cooler than he's ever looked with the armor, because that character can sometimes be a little bland. I wasn't too impressed by the Enchantress, but they could do something to make me a little bit more excited. Like, I wasn't too excited when I seen Black Manta, and Black Manta is one of the most interesting characters in that game.
Yeah, but the question begs to differ. We're gonna make it definitive right now, yes or no. Is these Ninja Turtles in this game, are you going to pay for them? Are you going to go out in this point in time with your financial situation, however it happens to be? Are you, and you can tell us this down in the comments because I'd like to know, are you going to spend the money, or have you already bought the Season 3 pass for these Ninja Turtles?
I already got the deluxe pass. I'm getting...
You getting Season 3?
I said, they're not Season 3, they're Season 2. These characters are already coming.
They're DLC Pack 3, that's what it's called. Those 3 characters are called DLC Pack 3.
No, they're Fighter Pack 2.
No, I thought Fighter Pack 2 was Hellboy, Raiden.
Nope.
And...
I said Hellboy finishes off Fighter Pack 1. Fighter Pack 2 starts off with these 3 characters.
No, okay, well, sure.
And I said, and the deluxe version comes with all these people.
Well, I stopped playing the game after Sub-Zero came out. I'm just gonna let y'all know, so I'm not caught up with none of that. And I'm gonna give y'all a big fat goose egg no, Cause like I'm gonna keep playing. I'm a Street Fighter guy. I enjoy Street Fighter. I enjoy Marvel. Those are the games I'm gonna play. These other games are gonna come out. I'm gonna try them, but I'm always gonna go back to like my tried and true stuff. You know, I'm gonna go back to Street Fighter. I'm gonna go back to Marvel. I'm gonna play that. That's where I'm gonna have fun. It's not because play the things you're good at or whatever have you. It's that's what I want to be good at. Like when you're playing fighting games, I talk about, if you ever heard me say the 3 golden rules of fighting games, right? The first one is you never give up on fighting games, right? Like when you're playing. The second one is there's always going to be someone better than you. There's always a bigger fish. No matter how good you get, what level of the world you get to, somebody's going to be better than you. You're going to lose eventually. The third thing is, with fighting games, the third golden rule is there will be salt. You are going to be salty at one point. Fighting games are difficult and something is going to frustrate you. At the very least. Something about fighting games is going to frustrate you, whether it's learning the combos or you're going to lose to the same guy over and over and you don't know why or what have you. The point is I'm bringing those up is with those 3, golden rules, that's what's going to make me, go back to the games that I like to play because that's how I feel. And what really makes a person salty in fighting games is when they really want to be good at something. They really want to be good at a fighting game and they lose at it. Right? Or you think in your head it's your main game. Like you psych yourself up. Like I can do this. I know I can. You got all this confidence. And then you lose. And you get beat. And you feel beaten. And that frustrates you. And that frustration turns into salt. That's when it really gets real. The salt. And you know what? I'm going to say this for me. I love that salt. Like, I love that salt for what it represents. It represents, the passion that the person has internally, that they want this so bad that being wrested away from victory makes them, so frustrated and salty that you're just out of it, right? Until the salt subsides. That passion is a beautiful thing. So, of all the flavors we could choose in the FGC, we choose salt. Because that's the one we want. Because people say they don't like being salty, but in fighting games, if you're a true fighting game fan, that's what you want. You want to lose. You don't always want to win, so you can get better because you want to get better. You want to be the best. You know what I'm saying? And that struggle and that thing is what's going to really make you, stick with your game that you are and that you have and that you want to play. So are these DLCs? Is all this DLC we keep talking about? Is that going to be what gives you that passion? Is that going to be what puts you on the mountaintop? And says, I'm going to play this game now because so-and-so. With games like Street Fighter, or franchises like Street Fighter, rather, that does it for people. Like, there are rumors of Sagat in this as being the Season 3. Like, people are so intrinsically entwined with Street Fighter characters for, like, cultural purposes and all these years. That'll make someone buy a game for a franchise like Street Fighter. Mortal Kombat's similar. Like, if all of a sudden, like, Goro shows up in Mortal Kombat, people are like, oh, my God. I gotta get it. Or like Liu Kang shows up when he wasn't in the game before, those classic characters, right? I gotta get it. Or Cyrax, or, like one of those characters, right? Or when you get a fighting game and the character you like is twisted and changed in some way. Like, I'll give you an example. In Soul Calibur 5, the character Keelik, who was a classic character for that franchise. He was a stick user, he fought with a quarterstaff. He was very different in that game. And you couldn't just pick good old Keelik and just, play how you just used to play from way back when in the day. He was all this whole different kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure my friend Joe has comments on that.
Oh, don't... man, okay. So, we don't often talk about this, but Soul Calibur 5... Well, Soul Calibur 5 had a problem in the fact that a lot of the characters that people were grown used to, their mains, people cared about, loved, they didn't deliver. And other games have been accused of that. Street Fighter 5 have been accused of that. Soul Calibur had that problem. Tekken for a couple characters, but they got most of the classic ones out there. Marvel vs. Capcom has had a couple characters. Even outside of the X-Men debacle, the Fox-owned character debacle, there's still a couple characters that have shown up in the last game they're just not here. And I would say, but he was talking about characters that people are getting used to and grown affinity for. That brings people in. Also, these guest characters also do bring people in. Like, people played Soul Calibur because of guest characters. Link sold a lot of copies. Assassin's Creed, which was the guest character for the last one, a lot of people wanted to play as that guy. So these guest characters play. I would say Akuma sold a lot of copies of Tekken. And hopefully Geese will give them another push. I'm also very interested to see Geese, and see what he does, and get a handle on that. So
is that gonna make you grind out this Tekken for 10 hours a day?
I can't prove anything. I can't say anything in the future. I think that question doesn't really.
Does it make you want to?
Does it make me want to? Nothing makes me want to besides playing the game. Like I can't say that.
Like how excited? Like okay, fine. I'll put it this way: 1 through 5, 5 being over the moon, as I like to call it. How excited are you to play Tekken? That Geese is gonna be in there. How excited are you to pick up that character? And say, God damn it, I'm not gonna play Destiny 2 today because Geese is out. We gotta play this Tekken. Like, oh my god. Like how excited? How much is that gonna make you stop playing Game A and start playing Tekken? How much?
I give you about a 2.
But see,
a 2 out of 5.
That's out of 5, right? That's not 10 out of 10. Like it's not. It's not 5 out of 5.
Well, here's
like
the
you
thing.
know what I mean?
There's nothing. I'm going to be perfectly honest with everyone here. The only thing that's going to make a 5 is they bring back Soul Calibur.
Well, that's
so that's they have to bring back an entire franchise.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's where 5 resides.
Right. With him personally.
Let's deal with 4. Right. So 5 is that. 4 has to be something new. It has to be something interesting, something I haven't done before.
Like a Dragon Ball Z fighter?
The problem is with Dragon Ball Z Fighter is
it that new? Is it that thing?
No. Like, you know what, my last I have to admit, Injustice, I put more time in Injustice than I have Marvel.
Yeah.
And there was 2 big reasons why I put so much time in Injustice that I actually got pretty decent at the game. The first thing was each character had those traits. So a game that we don't often talk about, but I was a big fan. I put a lot of time into. I have a history of a lot of anime games. We don't talk very often about them, but I was a big fan of Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, we might not talk about Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue, but I personally love Guilty Gear. I'm not a fan of Blaze Blue because to me it's like Guilty Gear Light.
I can understand that. He does have a point, but one of the things that I really liked about Blaze Blue was they all had a mechanic onto their own. And that's what traits kind of reminded me of. It reminded me of in a more kind of grounded, less super hyper aggressive game, more of a specialty. And Street Fighter tried to do this with V Trigger and V Skill, but to me, like, V Skill was like one move, and V-Trigger was a temporary kind of like install. And for non-fighting game fans, one, I'm sorry that I wonder how you've gotten to this point in the podcast, but for the few of you who...
Thank you for that, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
Please listen all the way to the end.
Please. An install is basically, it comes from the Guilty Gear lingo. Basically, it's a altered state for your character of which they have abilities or sometimes even entire moves they didn't have, but it usually costs some meter. And it also has a limited time, so it's a temporary thing. So like V-Triggers for most of the characters were these installs. So they wasn't, to me, it didn't entice me as much as it did with Injustice. Now you do have some install versions in Injustice, but one, you like, if you're doing 2 triggers in Street Fighter in a match, something kind of remarkable is happening 90% of the time. If you kind of have more access to it in an Injustice, it seems to influence the character a little bit more. So that's one reason why that game pulled me in. And the second reason, and other people may not feel this way, but it most definitely pulled me in, was actually the single player. I have to admit it. I play fighting games for single player, and
I-
you know what's weird about it? Because other people don't have this experience, and this comes from me playing fighting games alone for years and years, being an only child, and that's how I got good at fighting games. Was playing against the computer for hours and hours and hours, where I could learn to get down the combo. I could learn to get it to the point where it was muscle memory. And the single player content, what it did was it gave me, even no matter how superficial it was, it gave me a stupid, a little stupid reward for all this grinding I did.
Yeah,
it made it a little bit more palpable, and like that helped. And I'm not gonna lie, that single player experience where people bash made me better at that game.
I'm gonna have a little bit of a different view than my friend, but to a degree, a lot of it's the same.
I would say most people don't have my view. I am a minority in that.
No, I think a lot of people played fighting games for a single player experience throughout the years.
I would say anyone who's more. I consider myself a more hardcore player. I would say most hardcore players don't have that experience.
No, but the people do enjoy the single player experience. For instance, Soul Calibur 3, because we were talking about that. I believe it was 3. Had just really extensive campaign mode, and
actually 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, they had these really extensive campaign modes. It was all over the place. I mean, it was damn near an RPG, and like that. I enjoyed those, right? Because there was a lot to it, and it was more than just a fighting game. It was a fighting game plus other things, right? And the creative character was always nice. Like, I like pro wrestling games and all that stuff. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, all this 2K stuff. But the reason I got into fighting games was 2 reasons. One, Street Fighter specifically was the very first video game I ever was given as a child. So my introduction to video games, period, was Street Fighter 2. The second thing is, the reason was, I was broke. I couldn't afford, like, even, back in the day when SNES, Super Nintendo and all that was a thing, I didn't have tons of money to buy, like, lots and lots of games. But I did have people. And those people I had around me were able to play with me in the fighting game. So there was this competition. It was the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. The old World of Sport, ABC moniker or whatever that was. But, like, it was that, right? And, and then you get a little older and you wager something, loser has to take out the garbage. And then it becomes, as later time goes on, loser, buys dinner or whatever have you, and all this, that, and the third. So, like, but that wagering and that playing, and then eventually I went competitive with it in the local scene, and I played a lot of my friends, and I was like a little local, competitor, and I had wins under my belt. And like having people watch you and cheer and, boo and all that, and being, amongst peers and things like that, and known as the fighting game guy. And I didn't have a chance to, buy all these different RPGs, and every time the new RPG came out and all this, that, and the third. So these games, we played them because you were rewarded for spending hours and hours and hours essentially playing the same game for years and years, because you had people to play with. You had a hurdle to overcome with a new challenge with a new competitor, and someone would strive you to get better.
And you have this guy that every time you're doing a combo in the training room, like, yeah, he's not ready for this. Next time I play him,
I'm gonna get him with this one, right? Yeah, this is it. I finally found the answer to the puzzle, right, of these people, and I can win. And the prestige and the small accolades and the small friend group is a thing, right? And you're like, I'm good, yeah, I'm good, and you can talk with other people, and it can be a real social experience. And I had like somewhat of an arcade growing up, but I had a lot of console stuff too, and I always played on pad and stuff, and Super Nintendo was my thing. But like that sort of thing, that got me to like love fighting games for that social interaction between people, and like that competition and like that camaraderie that came from it. So like when it comes to a fighting game, the 2 big selling points for me, having said all that, is a little bit of nostalgia and a whole lot of, how can I say it? A whole lot of competitive aspect, right? Like, how does this game feel, right? Like, I have to feel a game. Like, I actually have to play it and see for myself how I feel about it, Like, but the nostalgia factor is what makes me like one game over the next. Because what makes you choose? I mean, there's all these different fighting games that are coming out. And how do you choose which one you like? Well, a Dragon Ball Z game, why that's so widely popular is because people have a lot of, history, nostalgia, and fond memories of watching Dragon Ball Z as maybe a younger person or so on and so forth.
And wanting to shoot laser beams.
Yeah, they want to be Goku
or Vegeta and stuff like that.
Yeah, they want to be Goku and they want to be. And the reason I don't like the Blaze Blue is because I don't hate the game. I actually bought one of the versions of that and I grinded it out and I played and played and played. And like the other aspect that will get me to buy a fighting game is, do I have friends who are gonna play it? Do I have friends who are gonna play? Do I have somebody to be competitive against? Like that'll make me play a fighting game. Can I go back and forth in this social experience with one of my friends in a competitive way?
I think that's why we ended up playing a lot of me and Roman have spent quite a few evenings playing a lot of Guilty Gear.
Yeah, we spent like hours. First to infinity, man. First to give up. Where like we was playing like the first person to just quit. I can't play anymore. We gotta like we would take breaks and go get food, and we'd do all these things and just have fun, and we would do that. But
also, by the way, he does play the big hulking monster in Guilty Gear 2. So prepare for 360 slams because Poe's coming.
Oh yeah, all of them. I love big characters, any big old heavy-weighted character, but that comes from like my personal love of like pro wrestling moves and He-Man and Conan the Barbarian as a kid and just big muscle men in general and like like watching Terminator, Terminator. Like if I could get a character and they put him in a wrestling game, but if I get a character in Injustice 2, let's get to Terminator, man. Let's get it where his face rips off and it's like. His trait would be like, he shoots you with a shotgun or something. Like, let's get the Terminator in there.
Actually, right? I would I said if they do the Terminator, they would have to do 2. Because you got to get the liquid guy in there.
Oh, T-1000?
You got to get him in there.
You know what?
I want the stiff run too.
Yeah, you get like T-1000. You could just have him like I like that. I loved those movies so much when I was a kid because like I'm 88. It's my birth year. So I'm like a product of like the 90s, right? So, but I loved like, Back to the Future and the Terminator and RoboCop and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of my thing. And then pro wrestling was a big deal. And luckily for me, I grew up with a lot of fans of pro wrestling, so I got to watch all the exotic types of pro wrestling, Japan, Mexico, I was one of those tape traders who traded VHS tapes. But all those things made me love all those characters. Like in Tekken, I played King. Because of pro wrestling, and I like the big characters, so I played Jack, right? Because Jack's a big muscle man with the mohawk, ho, ho, ho. I like that kind of stuff. And it's been a thing for me all throughout the years. So, like, there's, like, nostalgia there, right? Like, in Tekken 7, which is such a great game, like, I love Tekken 7. I don't even own Tekken 7. I borrowed it from my friend here. But I played Jack so much because it was just, like, I played him for, like, 10 years. So those are the kind of things that are going to make people buy a game. Not keychains and fluff and a box.
Good solid cast.
Solid cast. Good solid mechanics. A little sprinkle in a little nostalgia, and give people what they want. It's not bad to be obvious. Some of the best things are obvious, like Dragon Ball Z. Even the new,
it's super obvious.
Yeah, like the new Dragon Ball Super.
It could be more obvious.
Like just the new Dragon Ball Super for anybody who's kept up with that. I had to describe it to someone. They said, "Oh, but it's so fan service and this and this and this." I said, "Yeah, but that's the joy of it. It is that fan service. It's the best kind of obvious. That's what you want out of like Street Fighter. That's what you want out of like Mortal Kombat. You want out of your DC superheroes. You want the best kind of obvious. You want Superman to do the ice breath and to punch the dude in outer space and to do all this and that because he's Superman. Like I don't understand where these these game creators are going too far out of the norm.
I think someone once said, and it wasn't about this, but they're talking about it's official fan service. So it's the things that you wanted to see the characters do by the creators of the characters. And it's super cool to see someone something you may have thought about or something you kind of like always wished about and you like the character might do, and then he shows up in the show and he does the thing you thought about it. Oh, I always thought that would be cool. I always thought they should have done that. And then you get the fully official release and instead of have to be some bootleg, alternate name, something. That's awesome. Like, getting that type of thing, leaning into your gimmick. Don't try to run away from it. Don't try to, make it into something that is not leaning into, why people love the thing and loved who you were. And I personally, not to completely hark back on Soul Calibur, I think that's what killed that series.
Yeah.
Because they tried to be too much of what they weren't and didn't honor the thing that they were.
Well, I think the reason that they changed Soul Calibur specifically to kind of put a last, personal note on that is I think they were trying too hard to keep up with the times. They added like supers, essentially, like a super move meter mechanic type of deal in the game, and like that was unnecessary because the game never had something like that before. And for me, it felt like a sign of the times, like the Prince song. It felt like a sign of the times where it wasn't necessary. They didn't need to do it, but they felt they had to do it, so they did it. And I'm like, that's them, bucking tradition just because everybody else has one. Things like that. I mean, in that game, I played Lizard Man. And Lizard Man was an amalgamation of a guest character from the last game. And it annoyed me because it wasn't what I was used to and what I had spent all this hours and time. Like, when you spend when a person spends enough time with something, they grow an attachment to that something. And they want more. They want more of the same, but they also want new, right? So, like, how do you balance the new with the old, right? What you do is you add. Tekken is very good at this. You add all the things that the people remember. You keep all the things that the people remember, and you add something new on top of it. And you're going to get, these big piles of stuff. Like, each character in Tekken 7 has, like, 80 plus moves on their move list. But that's great because all the moves that you did in Tekken 2 are still there to some degree, and and all the moves that were there in Tekken 4 and 5 and 6 and now 7 are all there, and that's great. That's what people want. Give them what they know and then add on top of it. Build
also,
and expand.
And I think we've gotten to a point where people are so scared that people may not experience parts of the game, or they're so scared that this complexity may turn someone off and may not, make them want to get into something. And I think we've been selling, people short, that people, can't take this or can't just take this in pieces. Like if you're trying to learn like a Tekken character, yes, they have 300 moves, but they have about good 10 really, really good moves that you should really learn. And you kind of learn a character like, in Tekken in pieces, and in all those Namco games in pieces. And people are like, and believe it or not, that's true with all fighting games. Like, for example, if you're learning how to play Ryu in Street Fighter, you learn, the basics of how to do, all the special moves. And then you learn how things are applicable in the, for all the normal moves. And then you learn, simple combos, and then these different situations. So even though it may seem like the everything's right there, right at front, your understanding of those moves or your understanding of those mechanics aren't there at first. So it's not any less deep. It's just how it looks at first. And I understand, we've been, a lot of people have these, and it's mostly marketing. It's mostly video game marketing. They're worried that, people aren't going to experience things, and they're trying to get to general target audience and so forth and so on. But I think we're kind of, even as a society, a little bit beyond that. Netflix is huge. Now people binge. Now, you're in this society where people want the expert. They don't want the regular. They want, the super in depth, so we're not into the general audience anymore, and fighting games do have some mainstream appeal. They do, but you don't have to sacrifice the depth of the fighting game for that.
Or the nostalgia factor. Or the nostalgia factor of the fighting game. Like, Ryu still needs to be wearing his red headband. He still needs to not have shoes. He still needs to be in that gi with no sleeves.
Yep.
He still needs to do all that. Those are things that have to happen. Because once something is around so long, it becomes a cultural icon. And like I said, that attachment That attachment is priceless.
Like
that personal attachment to any one entity or concept or idea is priceless.
Like it'd be like if in the new the new Mortal Kombat game you found out Sub-Zero lost the ability to freeze, and all of a sudden now he just shoots water at people.
Yeah, and he doesn't call himself. And he doesn't call himself Sub-Zero. He calls himself Rain. Oops, that was a character too. Like, there was a character that just threw water at you that would look just like Sub-Zero, except he was purple. Like, and you know what? That's okay. Do you know why? But do you know why that's okay?
It's okay if you have that in addition.
Yeah, he just took the words out of my mouth. You know why that's okay? Because Sub-Zero was standing right next to him, and he still was freezing people. So you had what you wanted, and you had something new. You gotta you gotta take a little bit of the old with a little bit of the new. And when it comes to fighting games, learning them, my strategy and my attention for people learning fighting games is this. I make it even more simpler than the way my friend explained it. First, you learn the commands, i.e. what the 6 buttons do and why they're important. Then you learn the special moves and why they're important. And the third thing you learn, and this might take a little more time for someone, is how to have an answer for each applicable question or situation that's going to come up for you. For instance, an anti-air. If my opponent jumps at me, what's my go-to way of stopping that? What's my go-to defensive move? And it could be, most people, they see Ryu and he does like an uppercut and that Shoryu can move. Well, yes, that works, but just pressing, down and heavy punch is also equally as useful. So just having those answers for each situation is the best way to learn, a new fighting game character. How does my fighting game character coexist in the world of the rest of these guys? What is his response to the basic problems and situations that are going to come up in gameplay? And you can apply that idea to learning how to play piano with what notes do I think I'm going to see most, so which do I learn first? Or any kind of strategy game like Destiny, right? Oh, okay, I want to play this archetype of character. Well, what are the things that the archetype does, and how do they apply to each situation I'm likely to see in gameplay? For instance, and that's how you can approach any kind of game. What are my answers? What are my go-to basic, lowest, simplest answers to the basic problems? And that's another thing you have to learn. What are the basic things you're going to see in the game? Like another way
what are the mechanics?
Yeah,
how can people approach you? Like how can people move, and how do you answer that?
Yeah, like for instance, another good way to learn fighting games is simply watch. What are the common ideas here? The common ideas, in a fighting game is the number one thing in a fighting game is the name of what it is. It's a fight. It's you versus another person, and you fight. So in a fight, you want to, stop the other person from beating you up and beat that person up. Yeah, you want to stop the other person from beating you up and beat that person up. I mean, it's based as simple as that. But just knowing what that looks like might require you to actually watch other fighting games. And the best way, to get acquainted with fighting games in general, or any kind of game you're interested in, is to watch other people play it. And you're not going to be able to instantly mimic what those other people do, but you can get an idea of what things look like.
And I also, because I know this can tend to, even amongst fighting game faithful, can be a kind of a touchy subject. When he said mimic people, yes, you should mimic some of the things they do. You may not be able to mimic all of the things they do, but don't take mimicking, or don't taking ideas and taking strategies from other people as a bad thing. You should most definitely, take into account the things that people have done before you, and you will always, have your own little style and your own little intricacies and, things you think are good and stuff like that. So don't worry too much about, taking ideas and taking entire, molds of, doing things from other people, because that's important.
Yeah, like the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you don't know what good looks like, you can't do good. Things don't just come out of thin air. Ideas, people, places, concepts, time. These things don't just come out of thin air. They happen. They exist. Whether you're, watching and taking from other people these concepts and ideas, think of it as you're learning from all these people you're watching. You're not necessarily mimicking. You're learning. These are the common strategies. This is the common thing. Don't concern yourself, with commonalities like tier lists or the meta or whatever people are saying. Don't do that. Just learn what success looks like. What is successful? What does success look like? What is the not necessarily the optimal strategy, but what is the, proficient, progressive strategy look like? And then you have to, like, I keep going back to the hamburger reference, but you got to start at the burger patties and the bun and build up to eventually you got the finished final product. You're adding the special sauce at the end. That's the final product. You're like you're cooking, and you finish with the dish at the end. You have to start. But the most important thing above all of that we just talk about is you have to put in the work. You have to put in the work, and it's not gonna be instant. It's not gonna be overnight. It's not gonna be right away. So if you're a fighting game fan and you like these Ninja Turtles that are gonna come out in this Injustice, and you pick them up and you want to play, and you go in your head and you say, but why can't I do all these things I saw on the internet? They look so cool, and when I do it, I look like a loser and like crap. Well, it's because these things take a long time to learn how to be good with.
And some people you're like, well, I seen so and so do it, and he hasn't had the game longer than I did. How come he can do it right away and I can't? Well, that comes from they've been playing these games and they've been at this base level for such a long time that they may be able to pick these things up. And don't feel that just because they are at this level that you can't ever get to those levels, because there's every year there's somebody who is a nobody or is a fledgling guy who didn't show up, who didn't wasn't a big name, and all of a sudden he becomes to the top tier. So there's a breakout every time. There's different levels to it, and you do have to get to that level, but just because you may not get it right away doesn't mean you can't achieve it.
Yeah, and why are we talking about this, how-to fighting games, spiel or speech or however? Well, this comes back to my original concept. Do these DLC content characters and these DLC, objects and things, do they make you want to do they make you want to grind the game? Do they make you want to spend those painstaking hours and all that work that it takes to get good at these games? Because if you want to be good at fighting games, it takes time. And do these things make you want to take the time? And when you take the time to do these things, you're taking the time away from these other things. For instance, my friend likes Destiny, right? But the more he plays Marvel, the less he's going to spend on Destiny, so his character's not going to rank up or get new gear or none of that fun stuff. And maybe he wants that next, epic legendary item for his gun or whatever have you. I'm not going to pretend to know about Destiny, but I am going to say that, he's not going to get the next, item not playing the game. But if he's learning these fighting games, he will. And if he says he enjoys fighting games, which I believe him. I know he does. So he knows, like I do, because he's a little bit more on the hardcore side, that it's going to take all this time. So
you got to. Listen, I will say another thing. You have to play a character that you love watching for 100 hours.
Yeah, 100 plus.
Like I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there, I'm going through, these Monster Hunter, things because she has a big sword and big knight's armor and stuff like that. So I'm enjoying that. But you have to enjoy going through and learning a character. Like I had to do with Atrocitus. I had to eventually pick one of the characters and say, all right, who do I want to learn how to do these long combos with? Who do I want to see myself doing? And I'll tell you, the thing that got me to play Atrocitus was the little cat and the long punches. You just ran up there and just punched the guy over and over again.
Yeah, and
it's just that was just satisfying to me.
And those and those little things like having a cat and having and punching a guy over and over and over again. That's not like the biggest, thing in the world that's like determining versus another character. Other characters in that game punched guys over and over and over again in succession. Nobody else had a cat like him.
But other characters had assists like him.
Yeah, like things like that. But it was those little things. And he knew, as a fighting game player of a specific skill level and experience, that he had to spend like all these hours. So, I asked the question again. Do any of these DLC characters make you want to spend that much time? Because unfortunately, it is necessary. Like, do you want to play the Ninja Turtles for 100 hours to get good with them? Is that what you want to do? Can you look at Ninja Turtles for 100 hours? Like, you may like the idea how exciting it is now, but do you want to do that for 100 hours?
All I'm saying is, I suggest you get the line to Pizza Hut all straight up, and you get them to deliver, because that's a lot of pizza. That's a lot of cowabungas. Because, you're gonna be a pizza eating fiend trying to play those Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be, So now I'm gonna even take this a step further. The reason we talked about how it takes all this time to learn these fighting game characters is, this is the reason why people have the nostalgia, because they spent these 100 hours in like these previous games. Say like Street Fighter 4, they spent this 100 hours with Ryu, getting good, doing all these things. Now Street Fighter 5 comes around, they don't want to like just have all that 100 hours they spent be for naught when they play Ryu in Street Fighter 5.
You feel, even no matter how distant that character is from who you are, you do feel that bond. Like as much as I when I was competitive in Soul Calibur, I played Voldo. I played a bunch of characters who I was good with, but that was my main character. And he was a weirdo. He was just an oddball. And I was known for playing the weirdo oddball characters. That kind of became a thing for me. But like, me and that guy didn't have anything in common personality-wise or anything like that, and yet I still felt a draw towards that character. I cared about things, about the character that people don't even know about, and it's because you spend all that time with those characters. Like, like there's a very famous Japanese Zangief player. His name is Itabashi Zangief, and like he plays that guy whenever he can, however he can, no matter how bad or good that character is. And like, he probably likes Zangief more so than anyone else on the freaking planet. And he just doesn't care. He's going to play this character, and he's going to try to push that to the limit as long as that character is. So like, not having those classic characters like a Sagat, some people literally can't play that game without a Sagat in it.
No, they can't.
Because they put all this hours and so much identification. Like, Street Fighter is a game for some players where I play Sagat against the rest of the cast. That's a single player game, there's one character in that game, and all the rest of them are like enemy characters, and Sagat is the main character to them in this game.
Yeah.
If you took it as an action game.
Like, I don't even know, like, they couldn't even tell you the move list for the other characters in the game. They just know, I got Sagat. This is my teapot. This is my handle. This is my stout. Tip me over and pour me out. Like,
or like the soldier says, it said, this is my gun. It said there are many guns like it, but this gun
one
is
mine, and I know how it works. No, that's how people are. And games like Street Fighter are such a cultural iconic thing. That's just how it is for people. Like, they identify, that's their character. And some people, even competitive players at the highest level. You look at a guy like Tokido, right? He's the guy who won Evo. If you are into fighting games and know Evo, he's the guy who won. And he won with Akuma. That's his favorite character. And he made sure that his favorite character was the one he played. And when
he played Ryu when he was in there.
Yeah.
And he was damn good, but he didn't win Evo with it.
No. And when Akuma came out, the first day, he was the first guy that the people asked. They said, "Oh, how do you feel about Akuma? He's coming." He's like, "I'm so happy." That was literally what he said, and he speaks primarily Japanese, this guy. And he said in English, because he had somewhat English, he said, "I am so happy." That's it. That's all he said, and you could see it on the man's face, and he was jumping for joy. He damn near cried when it happened. Because fighting games are that important to him as a person, individual. But like, he he's done so much, in that regard, but that identifies him. That's his thing. That's what he likes. That's what he wants to be. That's who he wants to be. He doesn't want to play all these other characters in the game. You know what I'm saying? And there's other people like that, and those characters define their thing. And that's going to make a person spend money, folks. That passion that's right there, that's going to make them spend the dollars and the ducats.
Speaking of a guy
stand in the long lines, in the cold, dark nights, in the front of the GameStop at the pre-release at 12 a.m. because they got to play their Ryu or what have you.
Speaking of a guy who had a lot of passion about fighting games, I want to talk about the late, great Peter Rosas.
Oh, yeah.
The Fiends?
Yeah, ComboFiend. So, to bring it kind of into perspective, Peter ComboFiend Rosas was a prominent fighting game player who played mostly Capcom fighting games. He played Street Fighter, and he played Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and 2 and 1, and he was a long time, West Coast fighting game player, and he had a lot of friends, and people knew him, and they thought highly of him. You almost never heard a very bad thing about the guy other than maybe, his personality was a little, well, if I don't know you, I don't care type of thing, And he was just competitive as anyone else. He got the dream job. He got to work for Capcom, which was the company that made all of his favorite fighting games that he grew up playing, and that was his, that was his thing. That's what he did. That's who he wanted to be. And he got to work there. And he worked his way up to associate producer. That was his title. He was associate producer. And he even made some games that weren't fighting games. Like he was associate producer on the 2014 iteration of Strider. That was something he did because, that's what Capcom gave him to do. He worked his way up to that. He helped develop Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. In the mechanical process of how that game works, those fighting mechanics of that game, he helped, do that. Well, there's a lot of rumors and speculation about what exactly happened, but essentially what we do know is he resigned. He quit. He's gone. He doesn't work there anymore after 5 years. This man spent 5 years of his life at what would appear to us outsiders looking in as a dream job for this guy. He went from professional fighting game player to working for the company that made all his favorite fighting games. He grew up and spent most of his adult life playing, and he quit. Now, if you ask me, for what my opinion is worth, and it ain't worth much, but I'm going to give it to you because it's entertaining, is that he kind of was asked to leave. And the reason I think Capcom, the higher-ups, asked him to leave is because if you look at the sales of Street Fighter V and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, they didn't reach sales goals. And those were two major mainline titles for a supposed AAA developer. I mean, they even had TV commercials on analog and cable TV for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. As jank as those commercials were, in my personal opinion, they existed and they pushed it. They really did. They tried really hard to push this game. And one thing I will say about Capcom that I do like is even though their games aren't selling very well, they're still, what's the word I'm looking for? Adding new things. They're still, keeping up with them, creating content for them. Street Fighter V and...
They haven't given up on them.
No, they haven't. They haven't given up on these games. They're still continuing with their content as promised. And maybe, over time they will make the money they seek to make. But they found other ways to make money with these games through esports and so on. But I think that was a disappointment for them. So I think he was asked to leave. And that's kind of sad. It's sad to see him go from Capcom. Because now for me, and I think my friend may agree with this, it doesn't feel like we have a voice. The Capcom has a voice to the people in the fighting game genre like they used to. Like he was a guy, he got it. He understood, the struggles of the players and how it worked, and from the reverse role, from the consumer. He went from the consumer to the vendor, and then back from the vendor and the creator to now he's back to the consumer. And it's like, I think because of money and politics, the man lost his job, and I think they asked him to resign to avoid PR issues. Also, he said a few things in some interviews that
kind of painted Marvel vs. Capcom in not the greatest light.
Or just Capcom in general. He's talked the whole functions debacle, whereas if you don't know, he basically, they were talking about X-Men. Everybody wants X-Men in their Marvel vs. Capcom, fighting games, and that's a thing. Now, all of that comes out to be, well, He said he said basically they have characters who fill a similar function, and he said the phrase characters are just functions. And like we just talked about, all that stuff we said about people being passionate about these characters and this nostalgia is what'll make them, bring out the money out the wallet. That rubbed a few people the wrong way in the viewing public. And people made all these, videos and rants and all this stuff about, oh my God, Capcom sucks and don't support Capcom and all this and that. And we even said our piece on that. On this very podcast, we said our piece. We weren't feeling it. We said our piece. You know what I'm saying? That's how that went. And if you ask me, about what happened, I think he got the shaft.
So, unfortunately, I kind of have to agree with my friend in his sentiment where he says he doesn't feel like there's a representative from the people in that organization anymore, because ComboFiend kind of replaced the previous gentleman who was a Seth Killian. Seth Killian was a competitive Street Fighter 2 player. He was a big fan of the Street Fighter games.
Very big friends with David Serlin.
Yeah, very big fans of David Serlin. People who don't know David Serlin wrote the first fighting game book about fighting games for fighting game players and teaching. It was called Learning How to Win.
No, it was Play to Win.
Playing to Win.
He also helped develop Street Fighter 2, some of the mechanics.
Yes, he did. He kind of analyzed, chess players and other competitive sports and compared them to Street Fighter players at the time and learning how to win and learning different ways to win and so forth. But Seth was, very instrumental in getting Street Fighter 4 off the ground because Capcom had completely given up on fighting games as a medium, as a thing. They weren't putting them out. They weren't even thinking about putting them out. And he, not single-handedly, but he was a great influence in getting that game out the store, in the boardrooms, talking to the people, passionately pushing it and getting it out to stores and getting it out to the public and, pushing it there and doing these things to make, this fighting game boom. He's not directly responsible, but he's a big part of this fighting game boom that we're seeing now. It's been, a while since Street Fighter 4 came out, but no one can deny the fact that if it wasn't for Street Fighter 4, Mortal Kombat, we probably wouldn't be talking about Mortal Kombat and Injustice and all these other fighting games. Street Fighter sparked that passion. And it came from a person who was a fan. He came from a person who was interested and passionate about these things. And that's what I think, was the reason why this happened, was the reason why this whole thing became something. So now we have the person who replaced him, who was, I would say, probably equally as passionate. He may not have been as equally as maybe couth as a Seth Killian. He might have not have been the same type of person who was as clean cut as a Seth Killian, but he was professional and he was most definitely he knew about the players. He just came from that area. So he might have gotten the boot. I don't even want to speculate on why it happened. What my friend said could be a possibility. It could be a wide variety of different things. Unfortunately, I did check his Twitter. Not that I have any important connection to ComboFiend, but I've noticed that since this happened, it's been dead. So, he's not, and Twitter is kind of like the everyday sounding board of social media. So he's kind of fallen off the planet. So I'm interested in seeing what he does, and if he does anything else in the fighting game universe, he does anything else in that field. I know Seth moved on to PlayStation, and he worked on a fighting game, and then he kind of moved on in different areas within that Sony organization. And I wonder if he's moving on to a different position, or is he leaving, fighting game development, and, that area forever? will he go back to playing competitive tournaments? I mean, he was a very good competitor. Is he allowed to play in these tournaments? I mean, he did have somewhat of a hand in designing the game. Is he banned from Capcom Cup? I'm interested.
Ban the testers. Ban the testers. That's a meme in the FGC. Ban the testers.
So like
they don't get to play.
So that's a thing. He's shown that he still had it when they first had this this exhibition between one of the Marvel gods, Filipino chap. Filipino chap had his stuff together and had his set up team, and then he got 3-0'd from a Hagar Nemesis. So like he was already kind of doing some Dark Horse stuff, and that's actually what ComboFiend also had a legacy of. He was a top competitor who didn't always pick top tier stuff. He was more of a dark horse. He always kind of found his own way through things. So like he was a kind of a darling, and I hope we see more of this guy. I'm a big fan of him, and I kind of in the back of my mind kind of give him some of the props for the game Marvel Infinite being a good fighting game. All the marketing and ugliness aside, it plays good. I go home and every single time I want to play a different character. I want to spend time learning how to play these different characters. So, I give him a little thing, and I hope, we see more from this guy.
Yeah, I too hope that he basically, is I wish him well. But I'll say this. The fact that he's possibly fallen off the earth and wants nothing to do with fighting games or the FGC or any of that for an extended period of time, can you blame him?
I can't.
Is because that's kind of like what he's been doing for like 5 years.
I can totally see we might see ComboFiend 3 years from now, and he might show up to a random tournament
or never again, or never again. Like he might just ride off into the sunset, and you read on like an unrelated news site that one Mr. Peter Rosas was found in the Philippines, face down, and a pile of cocaine. No, but I don't think we're gonna. But you never know, right? Like anything could happen. Is the point? Not that he's into that.
Documentary about that like legendary Street Fighter 2 character. It was like Toshi or something like that. And he was giving, Alex Valle and everyone back then a fit. And
he won Evo.
Yeah, he won the big thing. And after you won it, he walked away. Like no one's seen him again. He was on top of the world, and then you didn't see that gentleman again. He didn't enter another tournament. He didn't show up around the same guys. And then come to find out, it was years before they found him. He was still living in California. He just said, well, I had won the biggest thing. There was nothing else for me to do, so I just kind of left the scene. I can see ComboFiend. Like, he's been a cop competitor. He's been in the company. He's done everything. At this point, he's done everything you can do as a fighting game player.
So it is safe to say that the chances are likely that he's just going to go home and be a family man. That's the truth. He might just go home and be a family man. It might happen, And I'm not mad about that because he's put in his time. He's got nothing to prove. I mean, I wish him the best. I'd like to hear something nice from the guy, though, just to put my mind at ease. Like, oh, okay, cool. You're, living well, right? You found other employment, and Capcom wasn't the end of your, Actually, but that's the nice part of me. The greedy side of me wants me to go on, some sort of podcast or have some extended talk and dish out all the inside, the what's the names, like, yeah, this person was, doing this, and this was the stuff that you didn't see, and all the behind the stage politics, and just, be this bitter kind of guy and give all the dark secrets, that's what I want to know, the juicy details of the BS. I would love to hear like the shoot interview if I will.
So that's basically my friend saying, ComboFiend, call us.
Yeah, I got 1,000 questions to ask you, and they're all good ones, brother. Like. And if somehow that guy in some capacity and some small chance hears this, man, we wish you well, but tell all the dirt, man. Give us the dirt. That's what I want. I want the dirt, man. Dish it out. I want the dirt. I want to know the dirty secrets of what they wouldn't let you put in Street Fighter or Marvel or what have you, or tell the truth, man.
Tell us why they wouldn't allow.
Tell us the secrets.
Tell us why Sagat can't be in the Marvel vs. Capcom game. Tell us why.
Tell us what they did to the shrine for dive kicking, and that Capcom was supposed to have had. The rumored shrine of dive kicking, where they was worshiping that move, and every character in Street Fighter 4 had one. And no,
showed us a golden foot.
Yeah, the golden foot. Like, tell us, does Ono really sleep with that Blanca toy on his face? Like, is that how it really goes? No, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, actually, I would honestly, like, even if it wasn't like in any malicious way, if he just kind of told the story of how things happened behind the scenes, I would be incredibly interested in that. I know I would. Because seeing behind the curtain in that capacity, to me, would be fascinating. Because we don't get to do that anymore in society, That comes with what I'm saying and putting in the work. You don't get to see, behind the curtain for a lot of things. To be a fly in the wall on when they were deciding what characters were going to be in the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite game, that would have been, for a person like me, that would have been, the opportunity of a lifetime. When they just decide these things and, what processes go into it. And, like, there was a rumor that they originally, used the new funky tag system that they have in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, with 3 characters on each team, like traditionally Marvel vs. Capcom had for a while. They thought about it and they thought, it doesn't work. What decisions led to that? What specifically happened in the day-to-day process that led to those decisions?
Sultan,
that's the stuff I'd love to know.
I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for just a second. It's but I've always had a theory about why the tag system is a little bit different in this game.
Why is that?
I said I believe the tag system in this game was actually a mistake. And here's why. I believe they initially allowed people to tag in when they always designed the game that you could tag in whenever you wanted, and then they have eventually put down these constraints where you can only tag in during these certain states. And I think they started playtesting the characters with this ability to tag in whenever, and it was so fun, they just left it.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, they found it. I think that does happen a lot with a lot of things, where it's creativity by, mistake, and then that mistake leads into, like, a eureka moment. We're like, wow, this one thing that we just tried, when you're in that trial and error process, and I'm sure there was. And that trial and error process, I'd love to know how that goes, too. Like, what makes a fighting game from the inside out? That's something I would love to see. So if ever that guy's willing to dish that info, I would love it. Like, there's a forum for that. But, like, coming to that, I'd like to say, to kind of wrap this thing all up, is there's an old saying where I come from, for people that I know when I grew up, and it goes like this. Passion is what leads to the practice, which makes the perfection. And without that passion, you lose, your way and everything else you got, and that sort of thing. So, so I say you, I mean the viewers, anybody who's listening to this, listeners, what are you passionate about in fighting games? What's coming up in the world of fighting games that's really making you, because I'm at a bit of a loss. I probably, as a person who loves Street Fighter so much, should be excited about this arcade edition. But what is coming up around the bend, or that's already here, that's new, that you're passionate about?
What are you fighting for?
Yeah, what are you passionate about? Me, personally, I'm just, online playing Abigail every other time. And I'm just having a blast. But that's like, I'm not over the moon about anything, and I want to be over the moon about something. I want something to, like, usually I have a joke with some friends of mine that they say, oh, I'm going to the store. What would you like? Would you like anything? I say, yeah, but I don't think they have it there. They say, what is it? I say, a new lease on life. That sort of thing. So, what are you passionate about in fighting games? What makes you, because I'm just curious to know, what makes you enjoy fighting games? What gets your blood pumping, get your juices flowing, really gets you excited about fighting games? What is it? Because for me, like I said, and I'll ask my friend the same question so he can give a few comments on this too. For me, it's a little bit of nostalgia mixed with a whole lot of competitive aspect. The nature of competition plus nostalgia. Those are the things that excite me about fighting games, to get my juices flowing. And I'm going to, leave you to ask you your final comments on that statement. What about fighting games makes you passionate about fighting games?
Fighting games, to me, I like the craft of the fighting game. I like exploring the system. I like looking cool and having cool characters, I'm not going to lie. Those things will get me to play a character. I will, if the character looks cool, but looking cool isn't enough. It has to have a feel. It's a difference between, or it's a combination of the mechanics of a character, as in, does he do something interesting? Does he do something that I like? Does he do something that's not as, sometimes just a little bit off of left field, just a little bit. But I also just the visceral feel of it. Like, I end up playing characters where I just like how it feels to hit this guy with this move. Like, I like the how it looks, how the other person reacts, how the aggression of it. Like, I tend to play a lot of those type of characters, and I enjoy that portion of it. And the little be able to put your little bit of your personality there is there too. Nostalgia, I like nostalgia as much as I like new things. But I do just I like getting into the guts of the thing. I just have to often take a little while or take a little time to, find the person I want to do that, or find the characters I want to do that for. But once I get there, I like getting into the nuts and bolts in it and getting that feel of that character.
So you would say like the science of a fighting game?
Yeah,
really?
It's a little bit of science and a little bit of emotion. It's kind of like the boxing, the sweet science of it. So, you're sitting there, there's the mechanics of how it feels in my hand, as also if it gets me in my brain and my heart. So, like, I have to find a character that interests me enough mentally, but also feels good. Like, the moves feel good and they flow well, and they it seems like the character is designed to do something, and all the parts go together.
So you would say, so if I was to just ask, if you was to sum it up kind of in a more simple way, you like the science and expression of fighting games,
right?
Okay. So also, in that, I will mention just one little quick thing. He explained why I like playing grapplers and fighting games. Because usually grapplers, like, I'll take classical Zangief for it. He's got that one move that makes you go, ooh, and he hits you. When he gets that SPD, and you see all that big chunk of health just melt off that bar, and it's just bam, and you got hit. It gives me all the juices why I'm a wrestling fan, and I love grapplers, because dropping a guy on his head from the top of the screen just makes me, or just throwing him 15 feet, or just hitting him with that whammy, man. I'm a Johnny, and in my play style for a lot of things, I want to hit him as hard as physically possible with the most guttural, visceral, vile, sad looking, that's why I love Abigail, because he got that unblockable fist. I don't care if it's focused attack, man. When he accelerates on your face, and the screen shakes and the lights blink up, man. I can't, that's the nostalgia right there. When you hit them real hard, I'm talking about, it's where you got to turn you close one eye and you turn your face, ooh, like that. That's why I love crush counters in Street Fighter V, because, when you hit the guy, he really does look like all the things in his pockets just fell out on the floor, and he's, just spinning around and doesn't know what happened. That's what you want to see. You watch, I watch UFC for the knockouts. I want to see the one-hitter quitters, but yeah, so he likes to, just to sum it up, he likes the science and expression of fighting games. I like the nostalgia and the passion of competition in fighting games, but like I said, we leave it to you. Tell us in as many or as few as words as possible what makes you passionate about fighting games. And if anything that's coming out new, in recent times, makes you feel those passions again, like you've always felt. And with that, I'm going to bid you all adieu. And I believe this ends our broadcast day.